Welcome everyone. My name is Emily Louie, and on behalf of Campbell and Company, I'd like to thank you for joining Email Strategy, the third webinar in our Giving Tuesday series. Before we begin today's presentation, I'll quickly go through some logistics for those of you who are new to our webinars. First, close any programs other than GoToWebinar that are running on your computer. We recommend calling in with a telephone instead of using your computer speakers, and then please move your cell phone away from your computer. And if you experience visual issues, send a chat to Campbell and Company or contact GoToWebinar at the number on your screen. Today's webinar will last 30 minutes. We won't be sharing slides from the presentation, but we will be sending a link to the recording in a follow-up email. We welcome questions throughout the webinar, so please use the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel that should be on the right side of your computer screen. We'll also hold time at the end for audience Q&A. And with that, I'd like to introduce Sarah Barnes, Director of Marketing and Business Development here at Campbell and Company.
Thank you, Emily. So we've got 30 minutes today, so very short, compressed amount of time, but we are going to go through a lot. First, we're going to cover some best practices using email in your Giving Tuesday efforts, and then we are going to do a lot of Q&A. When you think Giving Tuesday, you naturally think social media, but email is just as critical to your Giving Day success. In this webinar, we're going to get tactical, sharing an arsenal of tips and tricks you can use to make your emails stand out and connect with supporters. This is a part of a series of Giving Tuesday webinars that Campbell & Company is conducting. Last week, we touched on messaging and video, and on the 25th, we're going to be discussing social media influencers and brand ambassadors. These are all 30-minute sessions, so hopefully you could just chime in for a quick tutorial and learn some useful things. We're also going to be publishing our Giving Tuesday toolkit this week, so make sure to check that out on our website. Giving Tuesday, as you know, is a global movement, and this year it falls on Tuesday, November 27th. From schools to nonprofits to small businesses, corporations, there's no limit to who can participate. And so think about that as you're going through your Giving Tuesday strategy. And while Giving Tuesday is celebrated on one day, your campaign can go much longer. We do see a lot of campaigns that kick off before Giving Tuesday or ones that launch on Giving Tuesday and connect to a larger end-of-year holiday campaign. So I've designed today's session to hopefully help you, and with that, I've provided a few checklists. And so hopefully these will help you as you navigate your Giving Tuesday efforts. So with that, just to set up some context, email revenue in general has increased by 24% in 2017, and that accounted for 28% of all online giving. So that's not just pertaining to Giving Tuesday, but what it does show you is that it's a really important channel for your online giving efforts. Email is one of the most important, if not the most important channel to use on Giving Tuesday. So really make sure to think through your email strategy. It's the best and easiest way to raise money on that day. So one of your first checklists for today, I know you're all very excited, but this is your Am I on the Right Track checklist. And so first things first, and I've listed out here a few things for you just to remember, but you have to have a strong message. Do you have a clear case for support? Make sure that your organization is trying not to accomplish too many things in your Giving Tuesday efforts. Make sure that it's super simple and your donations will follow. Next is it easy to give? We'll talk about this in a few more slides, but test yourselves. Have someone outside of your organization test the online fundraising process, and I guarantee you that you're going to learn some new ways of making it a lot easier. Your subject line. This is key, and we're going to be talking about the email marketing quote-unquote trifecta here in a second, but your subject line is key to getting people to open up your email. And a fantastic tool that I like to recommend is emailsubjectlinegrader.com, which is a great resource for validating your thoughts. You can go there and check for spam triggers, suggestions for making your subject lines quicker or more emotive, and you can get an overall grade on how clickable your emails are. Next is, are you creating a sense of urgency, and do you have a clear goal. So urgency is really important, right? Like you have a very short window of time to get the support that you need for your organization. And even using the words now can boost your click-through rates. Alongside of that is making sure that you have a clear goal. Is it fun? Are you making it social? So one thing to ask, right, or one thing to make sure is if it's fun and sociable. This should be fun after all, and a great way to figure that out is to ask your friends, to send them the email in advance and say, are you being engaged in the way that you think you should be engaged? And is this entertaining? Is it a way that is drawing people in? Obviously, Giving Tuesday is a great way to engage your younger audiences in unique ways. So make sure that it is fun and sociable to the extent that is possible. Is your email mobile optimized? And this is probably one area that I feel like we all think about being so important, but yet when it comes to execution, we're not necessarily doing the best job. So, and the fact of the matter is that people are using mobile more and more. And I was looking up in preparation for today just some most recent percentages and facts, but the percentage of going from mobile devices grew from 57 to 63%. So that's the traffic going from mobile. So it's an it is essential, not just increasingly important, it's essential that your emails are mobile friendly. Most likely, the people receiving your emails are going to be opening it up on their emails. So make sure to use a mobile friendly template. I always recommend organizations look into using programs like Consent Contact or MailChimp. They can make it very mobile friendly for you, and then also provide you with some really great resources as you are creating your email strategy. Are you using clear CTAs? And because CTAs are so important, I've created an entire slide just for them, and I think it's a checklist too. So I'm sure you'll be excited about that. Are you using appealing emotional images? The right images can remind your audience what they love about your organization. They can appeal in ways that text cannot. So make sure, just ask yourselves, what images am I using? Are they emotive? Are they communicating my story? Are they complementing my story in a way that's going to move donations further? And match. So do you have a match? People give when they see that others have. And if you can do a matched opportunity with your constituencies, you're going to find that you're going to have a much higher probability of hitting those fundraising goals. And lastly, what's not up on here that I should have added is it simple? Keep it simple. It may be tempting to get fancy with your Giving Tuesday emails and add lots of design flourishes, lots of content. But really what happens is when you do that, you're going to lose your attention from your readers. People have a very limited attention span. We are a headline-driven society. We read headlines. We assume we know exactly what's happening from those headlines. So that's why we put in here, leverage your subject line and make sure that your message and design is very simple. You want to use obviously web-safe fonts. Make sure they look great in all browsers, which we're going to get into here in a bit. And then obviously use a color palette that uses complementary colors as opposed to clashing ones. So I referred to this a little bit before, but this is the email marketing trifecta. And I just love referring to this because it's a very clear slide, right? It's not too complicated. But the point of any fundraising e-message is to engage and hopefully raise money. And to get the response, you need a strong subject line to entice readers to open your email, as we talked about before, solid, interesting content to hold their interest, to hopefully convert them to donors. And also, alongside of that, as well, yes, it's solid and interesting, not to be too verbose in your content because people just simply don't have the attention span. And then thirdly is to have a clear call to action to get them to click. So with that last one, with clear CTAs, let's take a look at all things CTA checklist. Yes, I did put a CTA checklist down. I was trying to remember if I did or not. CTAs are, and by CTAs I'm referring to call to actions. They're very important as you think through the placement on where they are on the email. If they're above the fold, below the fold, we're going to talk about that. And if you have questions regarding CTAs, definitely put them through. So first is use a button to highlight a call to action. What we've learned and what research shows is that by using a button as opposed to a text-rich URL, it increases your potential for open rates by 28%. That's big, right? And so make sure that you use a button as opposed to just a simple wording that says like, make your donation here, and it's in lettering as opposed to a button. Use action-oriented text, so create that urgency that we have talked about. They're called calls to action for a reason, and even using the words now can boost your CTRs or your click-through rates. Make your button large, obviously not obnoxious, but readable. And you want to make sure that your button is drawing attention, but obviously don't go overboard. Experiment with using first person. We're seeing this a lot more, even in our own e-blast that we send out. But go from make your donation and change that to make my donation, for example. Research is showing that when you use first person, you have a higher propensity of click-through rates. So give that a whirl. And then finally, place CTAs above the fold. You want to make sure that you have a clear call to action button near the top of your email so users never miss it. Again, as I mentioned before, we are headline driven. We tend to just notice things very quickly. You have a lot of competing noise, right, and competing organizations that are going after the same donors, and so having that CTA above the fold, especially on mobile and on desktop, is really important. Oftentimes when I see emails, the call to action will be at the bottom. And I think one thing to test, and we'll look at A/B testing here today, is to put your call to action above the fold, or perhaps do two, but do the same call to action. So you might have one at the very top, have the very same call to action at the bottom, and give that a try. And then finally, use bright colors for CTAs. You want something that's eye-catching without being too distracting. And then a few other ideas that I don't have up here on the slides that I do want to mention as I'm thinking about it, is that I mentioned keeping the email simple, right, from content, not adding too many words. Add white space. So keep it simple and make sure you have white space. Be sure to include white space around your call to action buttons. The extra white space will help create a visual break and draw the reader's attention right where you want it. And then lastly, the other thing I was thinking about is regards to hierarchy, right? So we all have hierarchy in regards to our emails. We have what's our most important message and then perhaps secondary messages. Sometimes you have other links, images, and buttons that are not your main call to action. Remember, your entire goal is to get someone to click on your #1 CTA button. So all of the other details should take a back seat. Try using grayscale buttons or matching colors for any other secondary CTAs. Hopefully that is helpful to you all. Getting into segmentation, and I'm looking at the time. We're almost at 12:15, which is crazy. So we're going to just keep rocking through this. But in terms of segmenting your communications, you want to, it's really important to reach your audiences where they're at. Your supporters are individuals. They came to support your cause in a variety of ways and show their support in different ways as well. So you should try to talk to them as individuals to the best of your capabilities. I know segmentation takes longer. I know it can sometimes take more resources, but it's really important as an organization reaching different population sets that you do think about segmenting. Make sure you're sending the right content to the right people at the right time and frequency. And whenever possible, speak to your supporters in a way that recognizes their personal connection and history with the organization. If they gave to a specific fund, specific program, share that you know that information about them. And obviously, there are many other ways to segment donors than are what listed on this slide. I only have 3, for example. I have board members, volunteers. They are great people for perhaps being your brand ambassadors, your biggest cheerleaders. Perhaps they're your highest donors, and then lapsed donors, those that are giving every once in a while, but they haven't given for quite some time. So think through what your segmentation strategy might want to be. And this is my favorite slide. Test, and then test some more. And I think it can be a lot of fun. So you've gone through all this work. You've put the content into the email. You have all these CTAs. You have these links, and you're going, okay, now I have to test. But I think this is actually the time when you should get most excited, because you're going to learn about refining your email in such important, drastic ways. So first things first is check links. I know that sounds very rudimentary, but I can't tell you how many times, and I am very guilty of this, of sending out an e-blast only to get back a response that says, I can't open up this email, or this link doesn't work, and it's the most embarrassing thing ever. So make sure to check those out. Verify that the email displays correctly in different browsers and on different devices. So this is important. You have to make sure you check, and there's some tools out there, and I can ping you all afterwards with some ideas, but make sure that your email is readable in Google, on an Android, on an iPhone, in Mozilla, if you're using Yahoo or Gmail. So you have to make sure that they are all working correctly in all those different formats. What we have found is that what might look good in an Outlook account versus a Gmail account can be very different sometimes. Detect and fix any formatting issues. One of the things that I do recommend in regards to design, which we talked about a little bit just a little bit ago, is stay away from features like columns or sidebars or side-by-side content with boxes, because they do cause layout issues, especially when you are leveraging different browsers and different types. So think about that. Think about going back to your email and saying, okay, is this a clear design? Is it structurally sound? Do I have a number of different columns? Do I have a sidebar? You don't need those. And again, fact of the matter is, attention spans are very short. They are. So the cleaner, the more simple, the better you'll be. Ensure that all text is provided for all images. If you don't know what that means, it's essentially when you're uploading an image into the email. Say, let's say you're adding a picture of a volunteer, and you're saving that, you're adding in that alt text, and you're just putting in volunteer. That doesn't help the reader know what that image is in case the image doesn't go through. So make sure to title that as volunteer at our food fest or whatever, where it's more clear to the reader in case the image doesn't go through. Check for typos. So many times where I've made those mistakes. Check to make sure that merge personal fields are working. This is like one of the worst things in the world, is when you send out an email. I'm sure some of you have done this. I have, where you have merge fields and then someone receives it and says, dear first name, and you see that happens, and you literally just want to close your computer and go home for the day because it's so horribly embarrassing. So do make sure that those merge fields work, please. And then set a timer. So I did this talk about a year ago on mobile, like the mobile platform, mobile giving. And what I had everyone do in the room was take out their mobiles, and I said, okay, time yourself, or I'm going to time yourself. You have, when I click go, you're going to go and make a $1 donation to your organization. And so what I did is I set the timer, and people went off. And it was really fundamental, or it was really remarkable to see how long it took people to make a donation via their mobiles. So make sure that you do that. Make sure that your mom and dad do that. So different generations, people outside of your organization who have never been involved, ask them to make a $1 donation and time themselves. And what you're going to find is that your process it can probably be streamlined quite a bit. And then I put in here this last one is app.readable.io.text, and it's basically a free tool for all things readability. It's going to help you if your sentences are too long. It's going to provide you with suggestions on your URLs and your links. So definitely check out that resource. And Emily, real quick, I just want to check in with you. We've got about 10 minutes left. Do we have questions that have come in?
Yep, we do.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, we are, I got a few more slides, you guys, but let's see if I can get through these here a little bit quickly. So don't forget about the importance of pre and post Giving Tuesday efforts. These are all wonderful ways to engage and steward your audiences. There are 3 basic phases to an email marketing campaign for Giving Tuesday: the ramp up, engagement period, the day of, and the stewardship follow-up. As we think about ramping up, that includes a variety of activities beyond email. It's important to identify, as we mentioned before, your audiences, your message, your challenges. And as you're starting to roll out your Giving Tuesday efforts, make sure to weave Giving Tuesday into all of your communications. The day of giving, the most fun day, the day that you are awake from midnight to midnight, and you're eating fast food maybe during the day to try to keep yourself going. We have seen emails starting at 12 a.m. and last through midnight. Perhaps the schedule might look like this: your kickoff email in the morning, a midday reminder with an update on a progress to your goal, and a final reminder notice. Don't forget to segment out the people that do give. I have had instances where I've given to organizations on Giving Tuesday only for them to come back and send me the same email marketing message, the exact same one. And it shows that you are not being tailored enough, so make sure that you take them out of that list. And then just kind of a rule of thumb, to increase the likelihood of people giving, target constituents that have opened up at least one email in the last 6 to 12 months. And then finally, make sure to say thank you and do it right away. Be as prompt as possible, and don't be afraid to say thank you multiple times in different ways. Use video, and then obviously this is such a great stage for setting the stage for your next effort. And I included this in here just because I think it's important that we touch on is including video in your email can boost your click-through rates by as much as 300%. We are a visual society, and we are seeing the use of video increasingly as a way to connect with donors. And as a thank you, you can do very simple videos. Our iPhones are remarkable, and constituents, donors, they appreciate authentic ways of saying thank you. And so by simply just picking up your iPhone, videotaping a thank you, you don't have to do anything that's like mass-produced and costs a lot of money. It goes a long way. And finally, experiment. This is just a simple slide that I put in here regarding A/B testing. If you're not familiar with A/B testing, it's testing the response to 2 variables and comparing the results. When it comes to email marketing, there are a lot of variables that you can test, right? You can test the subject line, you can test the button placement, email links, colors, images, the list goes on. And as you see on the screen, you'll see, this is just an example that I found online through Campaign Monitor. I'll just point with my mouse. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but it's the call to action button that they're testing. So it says, get the formulas and read more. Super simple. Make sure you're only testing one variable. If you do decide to do some A/B testing, try to do this A/B testing during the build-up phase of your campaign, as opposed to like on the day of Giving Tuesday. Don't do that. As you're building up, as you're ramping up, do A/B testing during that time, and you can use that information to optimize your Giving Tuesday emails when it counts. And so at this time, I think we have some questions. I can't believe that I sort of rushed through all of that information, guys. I'm sorry if I went too fast, but hopefully some of those checklists and thoughts will help you. Emily, do you want to ask some questions? And I hope,
Great. Well,
hopefully I'm going to know some answers.
I first have one comment from Reed, who just said that MailChimp is great. They have a new tool that shows previews of every browser and every device. So hopefully that's helpful for you all to know. And then we have one live question from Benji, which I will let him ask right now. Benji, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Cool. All right, well, thank you for the presentation. It was great. I was just wondering, your example of like give a test for how long it would take to donate $1, for example, is there a generally agreed upon length of time that it should take a potential donor to make their donation within? Is it like under 45 seconds, under 2, like, you know?
So that's a really great question. How I like to respond to that question is that not necessarily from time, but actually number of actions that the person has to do. So if the person has to go through too many pages in order to make that donation, and then they have to verify their credit card, you're going to lose people by having too many steps. And so by having too many steps, you're going to actually, that'll equate to more time, essentially. So think about the number of steps that your current online fundraising program has or website has, and see about truncating or shortening that process. And what you'll find there will be a time correlation. And the reason why I don't want to say a specific time is because there are different types of users, right? Some users are going to take longer to read an email and go through that process just because of their own technological competencies, and others will be much shorter. Does that help?
Oh.
Is he still there?
Yep.
He's like, I'm going to hang up.
Sorry,
on
I knew.
But I do want to add, though, I think it's really important for everyone, and we try to do this too internally, is to lay out a map, and you can do it visually, that shows the entrance to the website or to your online donation platform. Obviously, there are a number of different entrance points, right? And then what is the process? How many click-throughs do they have to go through? Where do they bounce out? If you are familiar with Google Analytics or your own website analytics, you can see, and maybe we should do a session on that at some point, but you can see when you are in there where people are or where your visitors are bouncing out. And so it's really critical. Where we typically see high bounce rates is when they get to the putting your credit card information in. If you can have a link to PayPal, to Apple Pay, to ones where you don't have to put in that information all the time, you are going to have a much better success. And it's so worth it. It's so worth doing that as opposed to having people enter in their credit cards. That's a barrier. That's friction is what we call it, right? So take a look at those areas of friction and reduce them in whatever way you can.
Great. And then we have one more question. Do you have a website that will assist in the A/B testing?
So will help with A/B testing? Sorry, what was that last one?
Yes. Is there a website or tool that can help with that?
Yeah. So the ones that we mentioned, and the one that the first caller, MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot, they all now do A/B testing. If you really want to get nerdy, you can do what they're called drip campaigns. And so what that means, and I didn't put that in the slides just because it gets a little bit more advanced, and you have to have more resources at your organization to do this. But essentially, what you do is you send out an A/B test, and then how B performs, then based on B, that person will get C, D, E, or F, whatever it is. So it continues to branch out. That's what's called drip campaigns. You can take a look on Google on that, or I can send some stuff out. And those MailChimp, HubSpot, Constant Contact, I'm trying to think of some other ones, they all do a nice job of those as well. They've gotten a lot more sophisticated over the years, and they're able to use analytics and open rates to help out organizations continue their communication strategies.
Great, and it looks like we are all out of time.
We are all out of time. Yeah, I think so. Thank you all so much for joining us. We do encourage you to sign up for our Giving Tuesday webinars in our series. Next up, as I mentioned, is social media influencers and brand ambassadors on September 25th. So you can make sure to sign up from our website. If you do have additional questions, feel free to send them on in, and I'll make sure to get back to you. But thanks so much. Have a great day.